All right, awesome. So I am guessing, I'm noticing here that I'm probably going to see some familiar faces, some familiar names maybe to folks that were here for the social media workshop last week. So if you were here for that, you probably heard me share that, though I describe my responsibilities as running social media and the website and the newsletter, what I'm really doing here is I'm trying to tell the story of First in California. And as you can imagine, I need all of your help to do that. I rely on your stories because I can't be at all the competitions, at your workshops, at your outreach events. I'm not there for it all. So I rely on you. So in that sense, these workshops, the social media workshop, this filmmaking secrets workshop, it's a little self-serving, and that by providing you with this training, it helps us tell cooler stories because you have cooler stories. So with that, today we are joined by 3 accomplished filmmakers from the social impact storytelling team at Pacific Gas and Electric. They're the creators of the incredible mini documentary that features FRC team Project 212. That film is coming out on Monday. We're super excited about. So at this time, I'd like to hand the reins over to Joshua Ryman, PG&E's social impact producer, and one of those amazing creators that I was just referring to. Take it away.
Thanks, Becca.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see all of you. If you have a second, we'd love to be able to see your faces. For those of you who are comfortable putting on your camera just for a couple minutes while we start out the workshop, it'd be great. Hi, Shosh, and Eleanor and Daniel. Nice to see all of you. Thanks for joining us today. Gus, nice to see you. So my name is Josh Ryman. I work on the community relations team and I'm one of our social impact producers here at PG&E. And I'm joined by my 2 creative partners and part of our filmmaking team for this documentary, Brady Anderson and James Green. You guys want to say hi real quick?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining.
And so I want to just kind of walk you through what we're planning on doing over the next hour. We're going to share with you a screening of this film that we put together with Project 212 out of Concord, and it's about 10 minutes long. And then after that, and we haven't shown it to anyone. Actually, the only people that we've shown this to so far is the Project 212 community. A couple months ago, and so you'll be the second group of people that we're getting to share it with, and then we're going to kind of break up the workshop into 4 different sections. We're going to talk about storytelling techniques, filmmaking or filming strategies, video editing, and then lighting and sound. So those are kind of the 4 areas that we're going to try to cover today. Spend 5 to 10 minutes on each section, and then we'll have time at the very end for some Q&A along the way. So if you have a lot of questions, feel free. You can put the questions in the chat, and we can, if it works to answer them as we're going, we can do that, or we'll kind of aggregate them and answer them at the end. We also can, I'll be off of mute to have conversation with each other as well. So that's the plan for the next hour. I'm going to start the film, and we'll all be back together in about 10 minutes.
We had a small engineering class here at Ignacio Valley High School.
All right, everyone listen up.
my students said, we want to do something more. We want to do robotics.
Monday through Friday, we'd be here until 6, 7, 8. Saturdays are even more intense.
Yes, you can say that again.
Oh my gosh, like these people are just like me. They're just passionate about something and they're going towards it. I've always been interested in like designing things and just making things. So I had to really become creative with what I had on hand.
It was really difficult coming here, not knowing English. I felt out of place.
I never expected to use a computer in school because I grew up poor. Now I do all this cool stuff with robots.
This room was closed for 8 years. It was a dumping ground. Unwanted old machines here, bird poop all around. That's how we started. Room 212, hence Project 212.
Got the orange wrench.
Why do you keep doing this?
Because I'm crazy. Ignacio Valley High School is a Title I school, which means we cater to underserved community. We have students who can't afford this type of program. So when I heard about what FIRST Robotics can offer, I believe that this is something that could change the lives of students here at YV.
The problem that we have with the pit before is that all of our tools were all around the place. And when we need something, right, we can't find the thing that we need. That's why you guys organized it this year.
I moved here in 2015 from San Francisco de Rincon, Guanajuato, Mexico. I just started seeing all of this more advanced technology and I got inspired by it.
I was really just a shy kid. School started, they were like, we have this robotics club. Hey, that's kind of interesting. I want to join.
In FIRST Robotics, the season starts in January. You're supposed to be building a robot that would perform certain tasks. Let's say, pick up a ball and shoot the ball. And at the end, your robot needs to raise itself up on a platform. The kids are given 7 weeks to 8 weeks in order for them to finish that robot.
My role was to create the arm subsystem. I had to really communicate between elevator and claw to make sure like, okay, you need to be able to hold this much of my weight and of the claw's weight.
I like the testing because you get to test it until it breaks, which is really fun to me. You know, we just go really hard with the robot, and if it breaks, it's a good thing for us because, you know, that means that we know what not to do, and we also know what to change as well.
We were thinking, okay, do we want a rigid arm or a telescopic? We had to prototype as quickly as possible and get the best design going.
We have a lot of dedicated students. 75% are Hispanic, and then 40% are females. This is intentional. What we're trying to do here is balance the scales.
Coming into high school, the people that I looked up to as a kid actually told me that I couldn't go to college because I was a woman. I was really discouraged from pursuing engineering as a career. One of the things that actually Ms. Alvarico said that made me like really stick to this was, I'm gonna make a leader out of you.
I always encourage the kids, don't let our situation stop you from doing your best, creating your best.
Thank you all so much for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Project 212 2023's Robot Reveal. The team worked tirelessly together to create a revolutionizing robot for competition. With a job like this, of a team's hard work in 7 weeks, 4,885 hours, how can it be done without mentors?
When we started this team, the mentors and I thought about, what are we doing this for? Are we doing this for winning? For us, the learning is the number one thing. We're here to teach the kids and make sure that they learn valuable skills that they could use in life.
I had no idea how much opportunity these students have to learn not only about engineering, but marketing and communication. I was in high school many years ago, and I so wished that there was something like this.
The moment you've all been waiting for. Listen up, team. When I say 2-1, you say 2. 2-1. Yeah! 2-1. Yeah! When I say full, you say crawl. Full. Crawl. Full.
Do you know where the robot is? It's coming.
It won't fit.
No. We really need to get a trailer.
Morning, good morning. Good morning. Happy Robot Day.
There's some serious teams that are just way better than we are. It feels like a coliseum, like a gladiator fight. It's terrifying.
Hey, let's keep doing that, and then let's just keep testing our shooting cube up high. Because if we can perfect backing up, hey, bro, we're godly.
Hey guys, can you stop working? We have a special guest here. Okay, she's an engineer and she's here to find out more about your robot.
Tell me about your robot. What's your strategy here?
So basically, for this game, we ended up with a West Coast drivetrain. The main pivot is right here.
Nice.
So we can reach on the floor.
So can you do floor pickup of the
Yep,
cones?
we can pick up anywhere.
Love it. Love it. So you can do cubes and cones.
From any position, from anywhere.
How people think of a problem and how to solve it, that's what changes every robot to be unique.
So we've already said like what we do. So what do you do?
Oh, what do? I'm the CEO of PG&E. Okay, go get them.
Again, Justin. Oh, go, just get the cone. Let's go, keep going.
Okay, back up, drive station.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah, those are both
Oh,
completely
wow. The bolts broke and also bent.
shot. I'm glad we got through that round then.
We improved our communications, definitely. That's how that game went. Because the last one, we were just like all over the place. So our autonomous code says that it won't back up because it's an emergency. And we don't know why yet. It's been doing that all day. So we're gonna try to figure it out.
I always tell the kids, we have to do with the cards that were dealt to us. If you just believe in yourself, you guys could compete with some of the best teams out there.
I'm the first woman in my family to do engineering. Seeing other women really has inspired me to teach other people that just because you're this gender does not mean that you have boundaries. In fact, those boundaries are invisible. This club has actually opened my eyes to like, oh, I can actually do this.
Kids come to me with no background in robotics. They're unsure of themselves if they can even do this. But going through the program, they grow, they learn skills that could lead them to a career.
I came here with like one friend, but now I'm part of like this really awesome community.
Mr. Alvarico, he's not just a mentor, he's one of my friends too. I'm this outgoing person now. I'm a leader now. He's changed that for me.
My parting words to the kids is that now that you've tasted success, now that you've seen what you're capable of doing, there's no looking back.
To continue to support your journey in STEM education, I'd like to present you with a $10,000 check from PG&E. So the $10,000 is going to the purchase of the first trailer.
All right. All right. Well, I'm glad that we got a chance to share that with everybody. Hope you all enjoyed it. So let's launch into it. We're gonna pull up a few slides that will kind of guide our conversation as we go, and we're gonna start with the storytelling techniques. James, are you gonna pull those up?
Yeah, we do have our first poll question to kind of launch out this section.
Great.
So again, we're curious about for what purposes you guys are looking to create videos. Again, for us, it was more of a kind of broad look at a team and PG&E's involvement and what was going on. But again, it could be a lot of things. So it looks like, obviously, you know, our stuff when it's publishing will be going to social media and lots of different platforms. We also, as a company, host other channels, both internal and external, that will post it. But again, you know, these videos, I assume that you're creating, again, yeah, fundraising is a definite way to use these to basically show the experience to your sponsors of what you're doing and give them kind of a real tangible feel about where the dollars are going. It's always great at the end of the season to be able to play something back for your team to show all the hard work that's taken place for the year. And then obviously for you guys, I assume most of these places, you know, the videos will live in social media to get out to the world. But also, you guys are in school. It's a perfect opportunity to do something as part of a class project that covers your team. So these are all great reasons for doing video. So awesome.
Cool.
All right. I will launch the slides here. Okay.
Great. So the first thing that we want to encourage you to think about is kind of what is the actual story that you're wanting to tell. Some of you may be familiar with the hero's journey, but essentially that is you know, charting the characters in your story. You know, where are they at? What kind of challenges or conflict do they encounter? And then what are they kind of, what's their life like? What's for them on the other side of that conflict or challenge? What did they learn? How are they a new person? How's their reality different? And so that's kind of the hero's journey. We want to be thinking about as much as possible, you know, kind of what is the arc of the story that we want to tell. What's the beginning, what's the middle, and what's the end? And then why should somebody care about the story? If you're somebody, you might be able to put yourself in one of your teacher's shoes, or a family member, anyone in your first community, wherever you are. You know, why would somebody want to watch your video? What's interesting about it, and why might they care about it? Maybe they can relate to the people that you're showing. Maybe they can relate to the challenge that you're trying to show in your story. The second thing to think about is, who are your characters going to be? If you have a story that is too broad and kind of is about a lot of different things or a lot of different people, oftentimes it's hard for a viewer to really get immersed and really kind of connect on a human level. When we were making that documentary, Project 212, Engineering the Future, we had a lot of conversations among ourselves and with Mr. Alvarico too, about the different students who are on Project 212. And at one point, we had to kind of start to make decisions about who are we going to interview more, who are we going to kind of follow a bit more, so that when Brady and James started to edit the story, we could actually kind of have people that we knew a little bit more. Viewers kind of knew them, knew their personalities a bit more, and knew their background as students a bit more. So you really want to think, your audience wants to root for somebody. As humans, we want to care about, and we naturally care about other people. And then you want to think about well, if I have a few different options, who is going to say interesting things? Like, you might want to take into account their personality and how they're maybe different from each other. And so the people that we ended up featuring who spoke a bit more in the Project 212 story are different from each other. They have different backgrounds, they have different personalities. So that provides a more of a dynamic nature to the people on screen. The third area that we really encourage you to think about is, who is the story for? Who's going to be watching it? You know, at PG&E, when we put together stories, we're thinking about this all the time. Is our stories for our customers? Are our stories for a specific community? Sometimes you might make a story that is really focused for the community around Fresno or Oakland. Or anywhere else. And other times you might make a story that actually has a broader audience. You want everyone in Northern and Central California, where PG&E serves those communities. You want it to be applicable to all of them. So you don't want to focus too much on one specific community. You want to tell a story that people can relate to from all over California. And then, what are you actually asking anyone to do with this information? You share a story with people. It's about STEM education, or it's about robotics. What do you want them to now do? You know, in this case, we want people to start new teams. We want people to volunteer and mentor. We want people to support robotics teams, youth robotics teams in their communities. And so that's kind of our own call to action around a story like this. And lastly, an interesting part of putting together stories is how is it going to kind of visually show up on a screen for whoever you're going to be sharing it with? Because you want something to be visually interesting. You might have a person who's a really, really interesting person, or has a really interesting backstory that you think would be really cool to interview. But if all anyone is going to see is them talking at the camera, or where you're showing them in their story is kind of like maybe not in a very dynamic environment, it might not be that interesting to watch. They could have a lot of interesting things to say, but if what you're actually seeing as a viewer, because of the medium of watching something through a screen, is not that interesting, you might not as easily be able to kind of keep people's attention. So you want to think about, how can I tell this interesting story in an interesting way with interesting visuals also? So in the Project 212 documentary, you know, robotics teams have it kind of good because you're building robots all the time. There's the place in the studio, there's the competition, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of action going on. And so there's a lot of different ways to show that. And so we had that benefit. But we also realized kind of late in the edit that we wanted to be able to know some of our core characters better. We also needed to show them in different environments. And so we ended up filming a little bit at the school so that we could actually show Adriel and Sarah and Sara kind of as ordinary students at their high school and outside of the robotics environment as well. And we think that that kind of helps you kind of get to know them in a more layered way, in a richer way, than if we only saw them building robots all the time. So those are some of the kinds of things that we really encourage you to think about when you're putting together these stories. And the last thing that I'll say, and then we'll move on to the next section, is, you know, sometimes you may only be doing a 30-second or a 1-minute long video about something. And so not everything obviously is going to be 10 minutes. But these kind of core principles, I think, are still really important to keep in mind. You know, who are your characters? What is your story? Who's going to be watching this? And then how can we do it in a creative, visually interesting way? Okay, so that's storytelling techniques.
And Brady, any comments there in the end?
No, I think it's great. It launches right into the next section, which is capturing the story. And we have provided some tips and tricks for how to do that. But from my perspective, you know, you all have access to a fascinating environment. You know, I had no experience or knowledge of what the robotics field was all about, what you guys did and do every single day. So for me as a storyteller and a creator, it was fascinating to just bear witness to the smarts that you guys have. Like, how in the world do you create this elevator to raise something up or pick up a cone or throw something? It was just, for me, fascinating to see you guys in work. And so in order to illustrate, the fascinating world that you guys have access to, you're in the position of capturing it with your team. And so we've provided just a few different tips and tricks here for the types of visuals that will help illustrate your story. And I would just encourage you, just, point your camera at the action, follow where things are happening, show reactions to things going well and things not going well, because not every build goes the right way, the way you intended. And as a part of a story, you need to show those ebbs and flows of when things work and when things don't. And so just,
Brady,
go ahead.
And that's a really good thing you point out, which is, I think, again, oftentimes you may know what the story is you want to go after, but the story may change, or there may be another story that emerges in front of you. Be open to that, I think, because oftentimes you will see things unfold in front of you that may take you in another direction that still serves your overall purpose.
Exactly. And you all have the benefit of being literally in the room where the action is happening. There's so many people who would love to be in your shoes and love to be up and close and personal to the tools that you work with, the things that you are developing. You have this unique opportunity to bring an outside audience in. And that's kind of also a responsibility in that sense too. You're the caretaker of the story. You're wanting to show off something that is like your baby to them. And it's just a sweet little thing to try to capture. So again, it's following the action, it's finding the emotion, the struggles along the way. Just like every story, you have that beginning, middle, and end, but in between you have these peaks and valleys.
And when it comes to, again, filming strategies, I think, again, it used to be the saying, and I'm dating myself a little bit, the saying was, tape is cheap when we shot on videotape, and digital's even cheaper. So again, other than, hard drives and capacity of storing stuff, shoot a lot if you can. Shoot a variety of things, because you guys are the best to tell your story. But if an audience doesn't see it, they won't know what happened. You may be living in this world where everything is just commonplace for you, but there's amazing things that are happening in and around you that, people love to be brought into a world they don't know, and you are the best person to show them that. So make sure you cover a lot of things. Cover the mundane stuff that you think is not even interesting. If you're, in this film, you saw there, people on the whiteboard, people on computer CAD drawings, very close-ups of, turning wrenches and doing parts and stuff. Most people don't get to experience that. They don't know the complexity of what takes place. So again, as you can, try to get a lot of coverage. And then also, variety-wise, you'll see on the slide here, you want to get a variety of things shot. You want to get wide establishing shots that set you in a place. Oftentimes they're used to set up a scene change, to establish, to give you a breathing moment, to really kind of take it all in. Medium shots are great. It's probably where I would say, Brady, we probably live in medium shots the most in our edits. Really, it's, you see action, but you still see context as well, what's happening around it. And then really tight shots are great for bringing people into a very specific thing you want, or to catch emotion, or to catch little moments where you're really trying to bring to the audience something important is happening here. I think in our film, again, there was a part where part of the robot had broken, right? And they were all trying to wow, that happened. And then I'm sure you can all relate, you're in the pit there and you're trying to figure out, okay, I got to get this robot fixed and back out again for the next round of competition. Show those things that are happening. Don't live in those medium and wide shots all the time, because the beauty of your camera, and again, we'll get into this, but either zoom in or move yourself closer to the action. Don't be afraid to get in there and really capture those shots that you want to tell your story.
It really doesn't matter what camera you're shooting with. I mean, I feel like most people are creating on their phones these days. So zoom with your feet. I say that a lot, and that you can get up close and go wide just by moving around. I will say real quick, one of my favorite points of the story was kind of the serendipitous moment of the robot not fitting in the car. And that was just an unplanned thing that you can't script, but James was there capturing at 5 a.m. in the morning, and he just happened to be present. So he had a camera in hand. He was ready to record. He was, hanging inside the car to show the action up close and personal. And that moment was captured because we were in the room.
Yep. And I think one final thing before we move on about filming is, again, we live in we really like a lot of static shots. There's reasons to pan and whip the camera and do certain things for effect, but for the most part, really try and just frame up your shot or follow the subject. Don't be moving the camera around because it's hard to take in sometimes. I think, again, the more you can post up, grab a shot. If you need to move and follow something, great. But again, I think you'll find that oftentimes those are the more pleasing shots than shots that are panning, zooming around, unless you have something where you're really setting up like a dolly move or it's a slope, a tracking shot or something. Those can be interesting. But again, I think oftentimes filmmakers, when they're first starting out, love to get in there and just go crazy. I can do this, I can do that. But sometimes that doesn't serve your story, and sometimes it can take away from it. So, all right, so let's move to the next slide.
Yeah, so kind of part two of the filming strategies here, like you're capturing all these pretty visuals. That's one aspect of storytelling, but then you need the narrative. You need the voice to kind of layer the backbone of your story, and that's when interviews come into play. And that can be interviews, in the midst of a moment in between competition, or it could be a formal sit-down interview like we did with the students in our story. It doesn't matter where you capture that interview sound, but just having that intentional moment of a pause where you can ask questions to get curious about the people's the backgrounds, the objectives of the challenge that you are trying to solve. You're kind of you're a bit of a guide, at least in the interviewer seat, for your audience. And so you're asking questions in an open-ended way to elicit responses that you can use in your edit. And so again, yeah, it's just the who, what, where, when, and why bullet points you're trying to cover, but in a conversational way.
And I think don't be afraid to, when you're thinking about who can talk about something and provide good audio to describe what you're trying to get across in the story, don't be afraid to talk to them multiple times or to pull them away. Like oftentimes it might be great to get a little soundbite from somebody in the heat of competition because there's something like you're just looking for a little quick moment. Hey, how'd it go out there? Oh, what's going on with the robot? Or how'd you guys do? But oftentimes plan a time to sit down with people and interview them on video later when you have time to sit with them and allow time for them to really think about the questions and answer. We oftentimes will get sound in the moment, but then again, for these ones, we'll do sit down interviews. And in fact, I think for this project, we came back a separate day where there was no competition. There was nothing happening, and all we were focusing on was interviews. And so if you can do that, I think you'll have a chance to maybe get some more fruitful and a lot more content to be able to tell your story. And then one, final tip around interviewing is decide if you, as the interviewer, are you going to be a character in the film? If you are, then maybe you're having a conversation. You're asking you're hearing yourself ask the questions. Most often for us, we ask questions and then they wait for us to finish talking and they'll answer because we're not going to use our questions in the video. So if you're doing that route, be sure to also make sure that the people incorporate your question into their answer. If I say, what color is the sky? Your interviewee doesn't want to say just blue. They want to incorporate the question and say, well, the sky is blue. And it's really, oftentimes it's like this. So you have the words to work with.
And I think I would encourage you guys just to be careful about using too much industry knowledge or lingo, because again, you're this conduit, this guide for an audience who probably, like myself, didn't know a bunch about the robotics program and competition. And so, you're speaking to like your neighbor or your parents or distant cousins who might not know the first thing about robotics. And so you are, again, acting as this person in the know, but a gentle leader who is educating them about what's cool about it, why they should care about it, as Josh mentioned, and you're helping them along that journey as well.
And one final thing as well is think about in terms of their eye line, the person who's being interviewed, deciding, are they talking directly to the camera lens to address like an audience directly? Or are you taking basically an off-camera interview style where the interviewer is sitting to the side of the camera and you'll see in these, they're looking just past the camera. So you want to decide what you're going to do and kind of hopefully stay in that realm throughout. Oftentimes we find that the off-camera interview method works really well because most people don't know how to stare into a lens and connect with the human being on the other side of it. It's really hard. The other way, if you're talking off camera, you can have just more of a real conversation and try to ease people so they're not worrying about, try to have people not memorize what their responses are. We oftentimes don't share questions with our interviewees ahead of time because we're just having a very curious process about, hey, I don't know anything about this. I would love to know more about your team. What are you building? What are the challenges? And just talk to me as like I were your neighbor or a friend who was interested in your project.
And for the work that we do, the majority of it is not live. So, that your person in the hot seat who's being interviewed and answering those questions, they don't have to worry about it because, their responses are not going out to the world unedited. So if you screw up a response and have an issue or just can't remember something, you can pause, repeat that answer, and in your edit, just get that clean response. So something to think about.
And just to wrap this section up here, I think, Becca, if you can share that next poll just about filming and whatnot. I think nowadays, don't be too concerned about how you're capturing video. I mean, most people using their phones, these phones are amazing at what they can do. And in our world of storytelling now, with so many different formats, the look and feel is less of an issue with the story you're telling. Are you connecting with the audience? Are you telling a compelling story and showing rich visuals that people want to be a part of that story? They will overlook a mixed media coming through. And in our project here, obviously we shoot on the Canon C70s for the most part. I have a Blackmagic Pocket 6K. I've got a Sony FX30 myself, but this was a mixed media, edit that had C70, had Sony Alpha coming in from the team, had GoPro from the team, had GoPro from us, had, a DJI Osmo Pocket. All these different things are coming in. And in the end, it all still works together, I think. So again, yeah, the phone, iPhone, Android, whatever, they are great. GoPros are awesome for showing it in small places. Attach that thing to the robot, put it on the ground and let the robot drive over it. Look for interesting ways to use that GoPro. And then again, the DSLRs and the cinema cameras just really allow you to get a very rich, if you have access to that, great, because you can really set up some nice interviews with shallow depth of field. But again, don't be afraid to use whatever you got, because it's all about just capturing that story and how you put it together. Which that leads us into kind of our next section, which is getting into the edit.
Which is the edit, which for most people is probably the scariest part of things. The fun thing is taking the photos, taking the videos, and following interesting things and getting creative with unique angles and rigging GoPros and spots they shouldn't be. That's the fun part. But for me, I actually enjoy the edit the most because that's where your whole story comes together. Whether or not you knew what the story was going to be before you started shooting, this is where you can create it and you can forgive a lot of the things that issues that may have happened along the way. You can kind of polish things up in the edit. So in general, the stories that we tell, there's kind of a process to doing that. For this project, I think, James, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we filmed for 5 or 6 separate days. So that's a lot of media, a lot of data that we're churning through. So we're ingesting that into hard drives, making sure they're backed up. That's kind of an assumed best practice. Backing up your footage in multiple places is a good thing to remember to do, because if you get hit by a bus, there's at least an existing copy somewhere. I know that's a poor way to describe it. But then it comes to the organization. So you're setting up your project in whatever nonlinear editing program you use. We use Premiere, but Final Cut's a good resource, iMovie even. DaVinci, I think.
Maybe, Brady, that's maybe a good part, spot for Becca to share the next poll about. Again,
Right.
We're curious. Yeah, how are you folks editing video? Because there are plenty of options in this world. A lot of it can be done on your phone, in iMovie, in Adobe Rush. We tend to move it to the computer. I would say, yes, you can edit on your phone or iPad. Is it a pleasant experience? Usually not, but you can do it. But again, yeah, so a lot of people are using Premiere, iMovie. Again, still just a heavily used program out there, really capable of putting together content. You know, I started as an avid composer editor years ago. I've worked on discrete logics. I mean, I've done a lot. But again, it's less about the tool and more about how you use it. And so again, you know, we are in Adobe. And Brady is really a great editor and storyteller. But again, we start with, you know, the first process, which I think, Brady, is a great thing to hit home for folks.
Yeah, totally. So your footage is backed up. It's organized in whatever system that you're working with, so that you can access it later on when edits come in, or you have a clip in your mind that you remember shooting, but you can't access it quickly because it's lost in some kind of bin that is disorganized. So that's assume that you've done that already. Then we get into the actual cutting and splicing and rearranging, which is kind of the fun puzzle assembly. And in general, we start with what's called like a content cut or a radio edit. And that's just laying out your narrative using your sound, your interview sound, your little natural sound moments of audio that you've captured. And, you know, these are the questions that you've asked your subjects to respond to. You have all this insight from them, background, detail, and you're chopping that up based on their responses. And so you lay that out, your beginning, your middle, your end, and that's what we call a radio edit. You're not worried about the visuals, you're not worried about how it looks. It's just what it sounds like. And, you know, is it a coherent story? Does it make sense? Does it communicate the kind of thing that you're trying to reach your audience and say, and elicit those responses? So that's kind of step number one. James, is there anything I'm missing on that?
I think, again, yeah, don't be afraid of what it looks like. You may be missing, like, you might be telling yourself, how am I going to cover video footage for the stuff I'm hearing right here? Don't worry about that right now. Worry about the story, because you can find a way. You can go back and shoot something else. You can be creative about how you do it. But I think a strong story is really key. So that's really the backbone of anything. And I think that's, you know, something to dive into. And it's a good, you know, don't be afraid. I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, where's the story? Just dive in, start playing with it. And also don't be afraid to be non-linear. You don't need to start the first day of a build and finish the video at the end of competition. You can bounce around all over the place. It's all up to you and what story you're trying to tell and how those different little segments of the story connect together. Be creative. You know, you can do what you want as long as it makes sense and delivers the message you want for your audience at the end.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think the natural flow of a lot of our stories is basically you have a hook of some sort at the beginning, and that's a 15, 20 second, 30 second little visual or audio flavor up front that just grabs an audience. It pulls you in and makes you intrigued about what this is all about, and it makes you stay. And, you know, just along the edit here, you're constantly putting that carrot in front of your audience to draw them in, to continue making them curious about what's going to happen next. So you're not giving them all of the answers, all of the information. You're kind of packaging it in a way that is intriguing, a little bit mysterious, maybe some funny moments or things that don't have a resolution. That's what's going to make you watch to the end of it. And so again, you have this narrative radio edit, content cut. Once that's all locked, then you get to layer in those multimedia pieces, photos, videos, even some music, things to really bring it to life visually. And you're connecting what was said by someone in your interviewer seat to what is seen on screen. So if they're talking about home life or something that happens in their personal world, if you have a photo or video related to that, then you connect those two on your timeline or in your edit system.
And what do you like to say, Brady, when you're done with the edit?
Oh,
about
good question.
publishing?
What do I say?
Is that the end? Is that the end?
Definitely not, actually. So once you click publish on your story, if you think you're done with it, that's, in my opinion, kind of where it begins, because then you're packaging it to publish in multiple different formats. You're creating your thumbnails. You might even edit it down. Like you've created this extended documentary piece like we've done. It's a 5, 10 minute, 12-minute piece. Well, that works for some audiences, but let's say on Instagram, you want a 30-second or 60-second piece. Well, that's another edit that you have to do. And I find it helpful just to build the longer piece first, and then you chop that down into your different deliverables, your teaser, your little Instagram reel, things for TikTok as well. That's kind of where the rubber hits the road a little bit more. So yeah, that's kind of, in my opinion, where the work begins, because you want your audience to see this thing, you want them to enjoy the experience, and you want them to stay to watch the whole thing.
And just remember that, again, the edit, it can change. You could have a locked story and be working along and then decide something doesn't work. Something else emerges. The beauty of any of the editors is that it's non-linear. You can break things apart. You can save multiple versions. Oftentimes we'll have 10, 20, 30 different versions of a sequence, because we're playing with things. We're changing things around. Don't be afraid to experiment. The beauty of non-destructive editing. So
that's right. Yeah. There's plenty of times where I've taken a walk or left and come back to an edit and realized that doesn't work well. So building some distance between yourself and the edit is actually beneficial. So be patient with it, I'll say.
Or reach out to your teammates and say, hey, I really have a problem with this section here. I remember there's one part of the video where I think we had shot some of the stuff. I think Brady didn't know I had a few sound moments here I hadn't transferred. We were able to kind of work out a problem we had. And I edited a little tiny section, sent to Brady, said, hey, what do you think? Does this work? He worked it over and integrated it, and it solved the problem. So don't be feeling like you are on your own. Share with your team if you got questions. So,
right. I mean, ultimately, yeah, you guys are part of the audience that will see this. So if you're bringing in your team members to get those first review, second review of your draft responses, that's only going to make your film better.
So we have one final poll question for everybody, kind of leads into our last section, which is, are you guys currently using any lighting or mics beyond what is built into your camera or phone? So it seems like people are using microphones. Most people are not using lighting, but a majority of folks don't use either. So one thing, when you think about a video, and if you just think about the name too, video, right? It's emphasizing this, but I think it overlooks the fact that audio is such an important part of your story. Some people argue that audio is more than 50% of your video. Bad audio can take people out of a project, out of a story. They can be distracted. This is the one area where production quality wise, troubling audio can be an issue, a liability. So one thing is, if you have no external mics, move close to your subject. Make sure you have your recording device as close to that person as possible, with still a pleasant framing of what you're capturing. Be really aware, as we kind of talked before, about surrounding sound. Are you next to some really large air conditioner that's going on, or you're trying to get an interview with somebody right next to a metal grinder, or they're cutting lumber or something? But if you can use an external mic, this is probably the best acquisition you could add to your video capturing process. There are plenty of affordable $100, $200 mics, wireless lavaliers that plug into your iPhone, plug into your Android phone, and will transform interviews you record, even sound. If you put a mic near something that's going on there, it really works great. We use these DJI mics. Rode makes a bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of them out there. So I strongly urge folks to consider doing that. If you have, again, a DSLR or other production cameras, make sure you have a shotgun mic on there. Don't use the built-in mic on that camera, because it's not that great. use a directional shotgun that's going to pick up an audio pattern in front. I'm talking right now with a shotgun on my camera. That's how my audio is being picked up. So if you can do that and add a mic to your situation, it's going to help a lot. Lighting is also very important, but you can often cheat getting away and using natural light. An additional light like an LED light or something where you're trying to add in, it's never going to compete with the sun. I mean, unless you're on a Hollywood production and you're bringing in a grip truck and lots of large lights that take a lot of people power and money and electricity to run. But, you know, Brady's great at really looking at a room and saying, hey, this is interesting, but how can we use, you know, existing lighting?
Yeah, totally. I think for that interview frame, I'll take credit for that shot of Josh using, we had some artificial light coming in. We had a softbox for that particular setup, but we could have used those big lights you see in the background as our key light, we call it. So just find that interesting backdrop, kind of place your subject in a way that they have good light on one side of their face, maybe a little shadow on the other side of the face, just kind of get some shape and dimension to them and put them in an environment that is relevant to what they're talking about too. So if they're, Josh here was in the robotics room, and that's where we did all of our key interviews for all our subjects. Make sure it is elevating the story.
Yeah. So again, if you can add a mic, if you don't use one, I would say that's probably your best thing to add to your production toolkit. And lights are nice to have if you want to elevate how you are approaching interviews or certain set things. But again, I would say mic probably overrides the need for a light. Like if you can only do one thing, get a mic, get an external mic. So that kind of covers all the sections there. So Josh, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks you guys. That's great. I wanted to definitely leave some time here at the end of the workshop to take questions from everybody, because I know everyone's working on their own projects. One of the things we saw last year at the regionals was just everybody had cameras out. Everybody was filming everywhere. So I would love to know what kind of challenges any of you are facing right now, or questions that you have about the filmmaking process.
And feel free to either drop it in the chat or raise your hand or even just unmute yourself. Any of that works.
So Eleanor from team 1868 was asking, do you plan out your camera shots ahead of time, or do you go with the flow?
It's a bit of both.
Well, I guess it depends if you got one or multiple people shooting. It would be my initial response. Brady?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can plan out where you're going to be. You know, if you're attending a regional event, you know at least the location of what you're going to be shooting, and so you can kind of plan to be in the room, plan to be in a specific spot. But you know, it's so kinetic. There's so much movement that's happening that you don't always have the luxury to plan something ahead of time. So it's thinking on your feet, being adaptive and curious about where the action is taking place and kind of following that. So you can generally anticipate where moments are happening, where the action will take place, and you can pre-position yourself where those things are going to happen. I trust that you guys know the general flow of what these events are and where to be better than I could. So I think we found ourselves chasing more than anything, but you can be deliberate and intentional for where you set up.
But if you have multiple people who are capturing at an event, sometimes it is good to say, hey, okay, you're going to be down in the pit, getting close-ups right now, following them bringing in the robot. I'm going to go run up top to the audience and kind of shoot like another competition there that's going on to set the stage. I'm going to get visuals of stuff going on in the audience. And then we're just checking back in, you know, and if we're covering the same part of, like, say, the team competing, like, okay, I'm going to get a wide of the arena there and see just kind of everything happening. And the other person, Brady's going to be capturing close-ups of, you know, the operators and of the robot itself and various things there. So you can kind of make sure that you're not both shooting the same thing, which is sometimes useful for different angles, but oftentimes it's good to kind of break up this coverage. Or I'm shooting wide shots of this and Brady's doing close-ups, or vice versa.
Ben mentioned that from Team 2611 that they're surprised that we had so few shooting days. What I will say though, Ben, is that I think that James and Brady mentioned to me, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, is that this is the most shooting days you ever had on a PG&E story.
Yeah, oftentimes we have very few days to capture things. This one was fun to have a lot, but also, I mean, Brady and I have probably a combined almost 50 years of video experience, so we know how to get a lot out of a single day, I guess.
Yeah, but the
we
cool
did go
thing
back
about
a lot.
cool thing about having access to a lot of footage over a long period of time is you can show some character development, and so you can get people and show their journey along the way. So in that sense, it's nice to have more than too little.
Just going to kind of keep going through the questions here as much as we can. So Aragon Robotics, Teammate 40 was asking, how much time ahead should you set aside to plan out a video? James, maybe you want to take that, and then Brady, I got a drone question for you next.
Yep. So Josh, I feel like, and Brady, I feel like we started talking about this before the launch of the season, but we were going through the process of identifying which of our PG mentors, which team we were going to cover, and then sometimes you can start shooting before you really know what's happening. On this kind of thing where there's things happening during a certain time frame, you've got season launch, you've got robot build, you've got reveal, these things happen. You have to start capturing those things. But as we were going along, we spent a lot of days outside of shoots talking about the story, talking about what we've captured, what we need to get, what are we going to integrate. So there's no set rule. You can totally wing it and just dive in and start going and go with your gut instinct. But at the same time, the more you can talk with your team, if you've basically got like a media team as part of your build, your robot team, talk early and talk about, hey, what's going on this year? What are we doing different? Who do we maybe want to start covering? Maybe that changes. Maybe our characters change, but start talking as much as you can. The more you kind of talk things out, the better your story will become.
And as far as like the kind of the shooting ratio in the edit, in general, we spend maybe 10% of the time actually capturing the footage. The majority of the project is in the edit. It's 90% of the time where you're crafting what you have access to footage-wise or photo-wise. So that's the kind of balance to be aware of. Just because you've spent, let's say, 2 days out in the field capturing things, it doesn't mean the edit's going to take 2 days. It might take a week. It might take a week and a half for you to fine tune what you've captured.
Well, as a follow-up to that, I wonder if, and we'll come back to a couple of these questions. We will go a little bit past 5:30 Pacific time for those of you who want to stay on for a few more minutes. But Project 212 is actually asking if you ever can like film too much, if it makes that edit then more cumbersome if you're trying to choose between multiple takes or kind of sifting through a lot of B-roll.
You can, yeah, it can become a burden. There's definitely time spent cutting through footage, but I think as you get used to it and as you know in your back of your mind what your story is, again, if you lay out that radio edit and you know the story you're trying to tell, oftentimes then Brady and I are just in our bins, like sifting through, looking at keyframes, scratching really quick through that clip. Oh, there's a shot there. Okay, that'll work. Oh, just keep moving along. I would rather dig through more footage than not have footage to work from. And you never know what out of focus or weird shot you captured is going to make it in the film, because oftentimes those are the little nuggets that you just didn't know you had. Like, oh, look, I was rolling camera on that and I was following this. That works perfect. So yeah, I don't personally, it makes the edit sometimes longer, but I enjoy, usually I'm on the other end of like, I don't have enough shots. I'm covering, trying to figure it out.
Right? Yeah. You'll notice when you watch this film more, that there's and because I can't continue to pick up on this, that there's a number of shots that Brady and James took that have like a 1 second life in this particular story. But there was a moment where it was helpful to film the wall in the studio because we captured what was on the wall or something else, and that was it still made the final cut. But that little choice to film that for a moment ended up serving the story down the road. Brady, can you talk a little bit about the use of drone shots and when those are useful and serve the story? Those are becoming a bit more common and easier to do. Someone used it for, this is Adam, used it for a robot reveal. What's kind of your perspective and the role of drone shots?
Yeah, good question. So Adam, I'd say drone shots can be overused sometimes. Like the more you show drone shots, the more they become expected, and you want to always keep your audience on their toes. So if you are including too much drone footage in a project, then it gets a little bit old. But I feel like what drones are great for are establishing location and getting a perspective that we obviously don't have on the ground. So I'm kind of curious to hear about where that comes into play with the robot reveal, because that would be awesome to show a top down, something exploding onto the scene, showing a big crowd of parents and siblings witnessing something cool that's happening. Like that's a wow moment that I feel like would warrant a drone if you can use it. But again, it's establishing where you are, location, but just be careful about how much you use it, because it can get a little bit old for an audience.
And be safe flying the drone.
True, assuming you have your license to fly.
Or if you're flying one that's under the, not leaning a Part 107,
Right.
yeah, definitely just be aware and be careful. But yeah, establishing shots are great. Perspective that you can't get from the ground. But again, don't feel like you need it. We didn't have any drone shots just because we had just been licensed, but it was like raining all the time last year. So we never had a chance when we were out there to actually put a drone up in the air. So as you can see, hopefully, the films can work without it. But yeah, I say use them sparingly, but they can be really powerful when you use them.
Francis from Team 1701 was mentioning just about like how to kind of get things started when there's not a lot of experience doing it. What I will actually take this one because I had very little filming or editing experience before I worked at PG&E. I'd been around story work, but had not really done a lot of the production or editing myself. And I didn't film or edit this particular story, but there's a lot of other shorter form stories that I do film and edit at PG&E, and have really learned a lot of that just over the last couple of years. And the biggest thing I can say, and you'll hear this from a lot of like very experienced professional filmmakers as well, which is to just go out and make stuff. The tools are available, they're widely available and affordable. They come on the phones. And so the more that you can use your iMovie and edit on iMovie, the more that you'll get accustomed to being creative with the medium and getting better. And it's like low stakes, you're making them for your community. They're going to be supported. They're going to be enjoyed. And you can continue to make them. And I think as your students make more stuff, they'll get more sophisticated with the tools, and then gradually they'll want better tools. They'll want more. If you're editing an iMovie, real quickly you get tired of the music options, and you get tired of the title options that are available, and the fonts that are available to you, and the transitions that are available to you. And so then you want something a bit more dynamic, and so you'll be ready for kind of new editing software or new camera and things like that. So I think the best experience is really just to practice and to have fun with it. That'll take you a long ways.
It's like going to the gym or learning a new language. You just need that repetitive exposure to whatever it is to get better at it. I think all of us, James included, we weren't born experts at what we do. And frankly, I don't feel like I'm an expert today. I'm always learning, and I'm always curious about what the next techniques are or tips and tricks. So honestly, I'd be curious to see what you guys create, because you probably will approach something in a way that I didn't think. And I'm excited to see the things that you create because of that.
And if you're being held up by the thought of having to do a video for your team right now, you don't know where to start, the best way to learn how to shoot and edit is to work on a project you love. If you love your dog, do a video about your dog. If you have like a parent or a friend that's really interesting, do something about them. The best way to learn is when you are excited about the material and you get into it And then you have one under your belt and you're like, okay, now I can approach the next one. Now I can go forward. And there's plenty of, you can watch for hours on YouTube tutorials on how to button push, how to learn an app, how to do certain things, how to solve a certain problem. There's a lot of great resources that didn't exist before. So, but don't be afraid to just dive in and play around.
That's a great suggestion, James. Leo from Team 3175 was asking if you had any suggestion for stop motion videos.
So there's a lot of tools in stop motion wise. I mean, again, your phone will do it, GoPros will do it, DSLRs will do it as well. I guess it depends on, you know, what the issues are that you're running into. Can you not set the time lapse to a certain interval? You're only limited with certain options. Remember, you can also just shoot video real time, and then most editing tools will allow you to change the time to speed that up, to slow it down. So what you could do is just let the camera run and then compress the time in that clip, turn an hour-long clip into a 2-second clip. Now you got time lapse.
The other question here, and I appreciate Harper jumping in on the chat, but was just about editing websites and apps that are available. And Harper made a good point that there's a lot of these tools that are already on phones. Also, you know, you can, James referred to it earlier, you can Google just about any issue. If you are on Adobe Premiere or you're on Final Cut or iMovie, you can say, like, how do I do transitions on my iMovie, or how do I overlap an interview with some music or something like that? If you're having trouble with it, you can find that pretty quickly.
Yeah, the app doesn't matter. There's lots of things out there. And even now Vimeo's got a lot of web-based tools, a lot of AI tools that are coming online. One big plug, again, we use it all the time now. I believe you need to have a Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, but I think you might just need to create an account, a non-paid account to use it. But we use this thing all the time. It's called Adobe Podcast Enhance, Audio Enhance. So if you go to basically podcast.adobe.com, there's an audio enhance tool where they use AI on, like, we use it for interviews. If we get audio from somebody, it was captured on an iPhone, maybe far away or whatever, it does an amazing job of making that person sound like they're in a recording booth. So there are tools out there, and so it doesn't matter what you use, just as long as, you know, it fits your budget, what you can access, what platform you're on. Don't be afraid to feel like, oh, I'm not editing because I'm not in Premiere, I'm not whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Lots of way to do this.
I saw a question come through about how many interview angles to use, or how many different camera angles during an interview. You know, you can honestly get away with a single camera interview for most cases, as long as you have B-roll or some kind of imagery to cover edits. If someone stumbles in a response and you need to chop and splice and rearrange, you need something to cover that little moment where you've chopped up their answer. And so multiple camera angles comes into play when you want to keep that person on screen talking, because you can start a response on a wide shot, and then if you want to cut to a totally separate answer but make it sound like it was a constant response, then you cut to a tight shot, and then you bring in a whole nother comment, and it feels seamless in that case. So I guess I'd say it depends on if you want that person to stay on screen talking the whole time, or if you don't mind covering with imagery of some sort.
And just to save yourself some grief later on, if you are shooting with multiple cameras, make sure you're recording audio on both those cameras, because there's a lot of tools now that will sync up your different clips using audio. Or if you don't, the old school trick is literally, is in both things, yep, do your hand basically slate. You get both an audio hit on your waveform, and you have a visual cue of when your hand hits. So you can cue up. And then I suggest, if you're shooting multiple cameras, let them record the entire time. Do not stop and start on them, because once you sync up that first one, as long as you're at the same frame rate, you'll be synced the rest of your time, so you can cut back and forth.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Well, maybe we will kick it over to Becca to wrap us up. And in the meantime, I'll put a link in the chat for everybody to see. We have a trailer that Brady and James put together for this film that's on our PG&E Story site. And at that place, you can also check out some of the other short films that we've produced.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Josh, Brady, and James. This has been so helpful. I've learned a ton just listening in here. I am excited to reshare this video. So we're going to have the replay for anybody that wants to share it with anybody else, wants to watch it again. We'll have the video and the slides available on California First training page. It's under resources. It's like a new section we have. So we'll have that information there for you. Also, the film, which you've already seen, is launching on Monday. So just want to let you all know it's launching Monday. We're really excited to share to the whole First community and beyond. So stay tuned for that. We'll definitely be posting that through social media, on our website, all the good places. So if everybody is good and doesn't have any more questions, I think we'd love to end this. And thank you all, and good luck during the rest of build season and at your competitions.
Thanks, Becca.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck this season.